welcome to another week inside my craft space. I hope that you enjoyed last week's tour where I showed you my craft desk, I showed you where I work as a maker, and I showed you where I create. I also showed you some ways that I record my videos and how I teach my online classes. Today I am going to be talking to you about my Cricut organization system. I'm also going to be sharing ways that I store my Cricut machines, Cricut materials, easy presses, and Cricut tools, as well as my die cut machine, my thin cut dies, my embossing folders, and other tools that I use within my craft space. Now, I did tell you in the last video that many of the items in here are found items. I find a lot of items at garage sales or little boutique shops or random finds. Sometimes I even find them in the trash. So when you take a look at this craft space, it is not going to look like your typical room, but it is my own personal space that I love. And I hope that each one of these videos gives you a few tips and tricks for organizing your own craft space. All right, let's go ahead and head into my craft space and take a look at where I store all of my Cricut tools. For those of you who have not had a chance to see my craft space, I'm just going to do a quick pan around the room. This is a 9x9 room. It used to be a bedroom that housed 3 boys. So this room does have a closet. And then there is a nice window full of light. It's an east-facing window, so I get light all day long. We're just going to pan around the room, and you're going to be able to see my L-shaped desk, a lot of wall storage because I like to keep things up off my desk, and I also like to keep them in view so that I know what I have. Now, last week, like I said, we took a look at my craft desk. We took a look at where I work as a maker and where I create my everyday creations and my video tutorials. Today, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this really large piece of furniture that is in the corner. This is where I store my Cricut machine, my Cricut materials, Cricut tools, my embossing die cut machine, and all of the items that I need for that, as well as some other tools. So this piece of furniture is a baby changing table. Can you believe it? Now, I have been going back and forth whether I want to paint it black, but for now I'm just leaving it as is. It is a solid piece of furniture and I love that. On the top shelf, you're going to see some items that represent my personality. There's a lot of vintagey type old world items up there, like the lamp my husband made. There's also a bike sitting there. Now, I've never learned how to ride a bike, but I love the way bikes look and I love the mechanics behind them. So I have a lot of bike elements in my craft space. I also have my very first film camera, an old school bell to represent the time that I used to teach, and a decorative frame with interchangeable seasonal elements. Below that, I have my easy press machines, my Cricut Joy, and some other items. On the shelf below that, I keep all of my idea books. Like I said in the last video, I usually find my ideas in magazines and idea books, so I love keeping idea books in my craft space. In the area where you would change the baby's diaper, that is where I have my Cricut machine. And then below that are quite a few drawers. Now, like I said, this is a solid wood piece of furniture. I ended up finding it free. Someone was tossing it out, and it works perfectly for everything I have here. Off to the left of my Cricut machine, I have this Cricut tool holder that my husband made. It's made out of barnwood and some bits and pieces of pipe and hooks that he made specifically for me, and I love it. It fits my space perfectly. Now I'm doing a little close-up view for you here in case you want to try to figure out how to make it on your own. But my husband did say that if you put something in the comments below, he would love to take some orders and make one for you. So next to these Cricut tools, you see that I have my Cricut Maker. Like I said, this is on the changing table space of this piece of furniture. It does sit at an angle so that I'm able to reach the tools behind it, but I can easily move it so that the mat flows freely behind the machine. So I'm just going to open up the machine here, and then I'm just going to rotate the machine so that you can see it fits perfectly across this space, and then I just go ahead and move it back whenever I am finished. The tools for my machine are located behind it in one of the Cricut tool caddies. I will put a link to this in the description below. This holds all the tools for my Maker, my Cricut Explorer Air 2, and my Joy. I love that it's nice and compact and everything sits right inside this little case. All of the items sit on some pieces of Workspace Wonder. I talked about the Workspace Wonder in my last video. On top of all the little pen caddies sit 2 medium trays. The top tray holds my Joy pens because these are different than the other Cricut pens, so I like to keep them separate. Below that are my infusible ink pens, and these are the pens that you actually draw with. So I like to keep them separate from the pens that are inserted inside my machines. These trays just snap together really easily, and they stack right on top of those little pen insert holders. Now, unfortunately, we no longer carry those little pen holders, but a tool caddy will also work for these pens. In front of all of my tools, I keep my P-Touch machine. This sits inside a tray that belonged to my husband's grandmother, so it's really special to me to have it sitting inside my craft space, and that blue color matches perfectly. I keep the cassettes for my P-Touch inside this little silver tin box. You saw that up on the top shelf. These tins are available at Michael's craft stores in all sorts of colors. In my last video, I showed you this pull-out tray that my husband made for my Air 2, but I didn't really go into a whole lot of detail as to why he built it here. Not only did he design this pull-out tray to help store my machine out of the way, but it also works perfectly when I am cutting on a 24-inch mat. Now, you guys all know that these 24-inch mats need a lot of space behind the machine when you're cutting out large items. And this pull-out tray is perfectly designed for that. You saw that I rotated my machine so that the cutting mat, as it's cutting, goes all the way behind the machine along the pull-out tray, and it actually goes under my desk just a little bit. I love that my husband designed this pull-out tray for this reason. It works perfectly not only to store away my machine, but I'm able to use that 12 by 24-inch mat when I'm cutting large items. Speaking of that large 12 by 24-inch mat, you're probably wondering where I store it. Underneath my Cricut machine is this large drawer, and it holds all of the Cricut items I need. So I have all of my Cricut Joy mats in here, along with my label materials and sticker materials. Below that, I have my small Easy Press mat. I also have my matte stencil film and some chalkboard paper. These are just some odd and ends materials that I like to keep in this drawer. I have all 4 of my 12 by 12 Cricut mats in here in every color because we know we always need these. Underneath the Cricut mats, I have a larger Easy Press mat. As you can see, it just fits perfectly in this drawer like it was made for this. Underneath the mat, I have some heat protecting mats for when I'm doing iron-on or infusible ink. And then you can see right below that are those 12 by 24-inch mats. So I do need to move a few things around when I'm grabbing them, but I rarely use them. So this drawer just fits them perfectly and they store out of the way. I also have my Cricut cords in here. I have some weeding tools. I have my large Cricut ruler that sticks in here. And all of my Cricut Joy Smart materials go right in here. And then you can see I also have transfer tape and stencil film because I use a lot of that, so I like to buy the rolls in bulk. All of the items literally just go right inside this drawer and store away for me to grab whenever I need them. So I can go ahead and just close the drawer, have them out of sight, and open up the drawer when I'm using my Cricut machine. In the second drawer, I have embellishment boxes. I'm not going to talk about these today because I'm going to discuss how these come together when I do my video about embellishments and other ephemera. So in the third drawer, I have all of my Cricut materials. And you're going to see that they're in these 12 by 12 iris boxes. Each one is labeled with a different material. Let's go ahead and take a look at the one that says removable adhesive vinyl. Inside this box, I have all of my removable adhesive vinyl divided by type. In this folder is matte. This folder is the patterned, and then below that is a stack of removable vinyl in Roy G. Biv order. That is how I do most of the items in my craft room. I like to put everything in rainbow order. Now this is a lot of vinyl, I know, but I teach a lot of classes, I do a lot of projects, so I have a lot of this adhesive vinyl in my stash. Now, a lot of people wonder why I take it off the roll and I cut it down into 12 by 12 pieces. Someone once told me that that was really wasteful. This is a system that works for me. Everything lies flat right inside this iris case. I also buy my vinyl in bulk, which comes in 12 by 12 sheets, making this storage system perfect for the bulk vinyl. Now the ones that come in rolls, I do cut down also to 12 by 12 sheets. And that's because I don't like how the vinyl rolls up and kind of stays in that rolled shape when you leave it on the roll too long. If I cut it down into 12 by 12 and flatten it in these boxes, then it's nice and flat and it's ready to go on my mat without any of the wrinkles or rolls. All of my materials, like the removable, the permanent, the faux leathers, all of those items go in these iris boxes and they sit in this bottom drawer. Now these boxes are a little bit heavy, so if you choose to place your boxes in a drawer, make sure that that drawer can handle it. This is a big beast of a piece of furniture, and I haven't had any issues with the drawer drooping or warping. To the right of my Cricut machine on one of the shelves, I have my die cut machine, which is a really old Sizzix. I'm able to rotate it 90 degrees and I can use it right here in this space. Now this machine is older, it's no longer available, but I love the designs on it and dragonflies happen to be one of my favorite creatures. Below the die cut machine is a drawer that holds all of the items that I need for the die cut machine. So in this drawer, you're going to see a lot of familiar items you probably have in your craft room. I have a magnetic plate and I have a couple of cutting plates for dies. Below that, I have quite a few little Sizzix plates there. I also have some diffusers available. I have a set of plates for embossing folders and a set of plates for dies, and then I have an extra set available just in case I need it. Underneath that stack, I have a few other things like foam pads and instruction sheets. The instruction sheets go with these folding embossing folders, so I like to keep them together in the same drawer. Now, it's been a while since I have used these instruction sheets, so I kind of had to giggle when I saw the Cuttlebug instruction sheet in there. I no longer have the Cuttlebug, so this is going to go over in the trash bin. All right, so under all of these items are some magnetic sheets. I did a video showing how I organize my die cuts, and these are extra magnetic sheets that I use for whenever I get new dies. I also keep some Sizzix adhesive sheets in here. These come in handy when I'm creating really delicate die cuts. And a set of really long cutting plates. These have come in handy with a couple of different dies that I own. Over on the other side, I have a nice little tool to help me clean out my intricate dies. I have all those fancy folding embossing folders and a really big one underneath that makes rosettes. I also have this We Are Memory Keepers laser square. Below everything is the mats that go with the laser square. This is something I don't use as much as I used to now that I have my Versa mats, but it does come in handy for some of my home decor projects and a few other little intricate projects that I use here and there with the Cricut, so I do like to keep it in my craft space. In my craft space, I like to keep like items together. When I go to cut out a die cut or go to emboss with an embossing folder, everything I need is right near the Sizzix machine. I don't need to hunt all over my craft room for it. In the next drawer, I have a couple of other tools that I use in my craft space. I am pretty particular about the tools that I have in my craft space, and I keep them to a minimum. I don't have a whole lot of excess tools. If I don't use a tool within a 12-month period, I get rid of it. I have no need to keep it in my craft space. The tools that I do keep are used often and well loved. Now in this last drawer, you're going to be able to see that this is part of a changing table. This place here was designed to hold diapers and wipes. I use it to hold my infusible ink and extra supplies that I use often. Things like foam tape and liquid glue and buttons, things that I use often in my craft space and I hate running out of in the middle of a project. This is also where I store my infusible ink. The infusible ink needs to stay in a box away from any light. So I keep it tucked under all of those items in this drawer, away from the sun and away from all of the other Cricut materials. Now the extra supplies are not stacked on the infusible ink boxes. There's actually a wooden shelf here. And like I said, this was designed where the diapers went underneath and then your little wipes went on top. So that little tiny half shelf works perfectly for me to store extra supplies, and I can still reach the infusible ink underneath. All right, so now that you've seen all of the fun items inside the drawers, let's take a look at a few more items up on the shelves. Like I said, I like to keep like items together. So I keep all of my embossing folders in this blue metal tin right above my Sizzix machine. Let me show you how I organize them inside the tin. So this was labeled as a bread tin online in case you decide you want to go look for one. The top actually seals really well, so I'm able to pick it up without worrying that the lid's going to fall off. Inside, I have all of my embossing folders labeled. In a little glass yogurt jar, I have some small border embossing folders. Behind that, I have some small design folders, and then they progressively get larger throughout the tin. Now, as you can see, they are all labeled with the designer name and the folder name. I used my labeler to do this with some clear label tape. The labels on the embossing folders match the names on my embossing sample cards. So if you saw my last video, you saw these were hanging above my desk. Each of these are samples of what the embossing folder looks like on a piece of cardstock. And I can see both the emboss side and the deboss side on these sample cards. In my craft space, I like to have everything visible so that I remember what I own. Now, I can't have all of these embossing folders visible, so having those sample sheets hang above my desk reminds me to use my embossing folders, and I'm able to be inspired by the designs that I own. On the shelf above that tin of embossing folders are 4 books that hold my metal dies. Now, I did do a video showing how I organize these dies, but if you missed that video, I am going to go ahead and just show you a quick peek at the book. On the outside, I have these little metal tabs with the label that shows which types of dies are inside each of the books. Inside this 3-ring binder, I have all of my dies labeled. They go inside these memory protectors and are sitting on those magnetic sheets that I showed you earlier. Now these are dryer vent sheets, so if you're ever looking for a magnetic sheet, dryer vent sheets are your cheapest option. If you want to see this organization method in more detail, I'll put a link to that video up above. All right, so to the left of those books are a couple of tins. One holds the cassette tapes for my labeler, the other has pocket cards. And then I also have all 3 easy presses and my joy on that shelf. Below that, like I said, are all of my how-to and idea books. Some of them are close to my heart, some of them are Cricut, some are just random ones that I found here and there at garage sales or thrift shops. But I love having idea books in my craft space. They often have unique ideas that are not on other idea websites. Now off to the corner is this fun little shelf of 4 boxes. Inside the top drawer I have paper punches. Now I don't use paper punches very often because I have a Cricut, I have a die cut machine, and I don't use the paper punches very much, but there are a couple of borders that I love using, and I also love having a corner rounder. So they go right inside this box. On the front of the box, I created some little Cricut made signs. The little chalkboard piece came with the box. It was actually tied on with jute, and I scanned in each one of those little tags into my Cricut, and then I created a vinyl design for the front of the tag, and it is my tagline, which is Faith, Family, Coffee, and Crafts. I'll show you what's in the other drawers in a couple of the other videos. All right, the last tool that I have in my craft space is my sewing machine. And unfortunately, after I shot this video, my sewing machine died. So if you have any suggestions for a good sewing machine that works with paper crafting, please post it in the comments below. This just sits on my paper shelf and I pull it off and place it on my desk when I'm ready to use it. And that is all of the tools that I use in my craft space. So you had a chance to see all of my Cricut organization, my die cutting and embossing folder organization, and how I organize a lot of the tools in my crafting space. And almost all of it fits on this large piece of furniture. All right, so next week we're going to talk about my paper organization. I gave you a little peek of it on my desk in the first week, but we really did not approach the actual paper and cardstock collection. So I'm going to talk to you about how I organize my cardstock and my papers. I'm also going to show you a few tips and tricks for how you can organize your own. I want to thank you again for joining me in my craft space. I hope that you gained a few new ideas for organizing your own crafting room or crafting table. If you missed any of my past craft room tours, you can go ahead and click on that collection icon. I've also posted a link to my most recent creation. While you're at it, go ahead and click that subscribe button so that you are notified when I add my next craft room tour video. I hope you have a wonderful week. I can't wait to see what you create.